When a game saves your progress automatically after every mundane action you complete, or when you're given a quick save option that allows you to momentarily get out of character and just get crazy, you don't really consider the consequences of your actions. Nowadays, saving is so easy that we take it for granted, and well, it's hard to argue that more save options are bad, although they certainly encourage us to develop bad habits. When I recently picked up Yakuza Kiwami, a remake of a game with saving only in certain locations, I was positively surprised that Sega added an option to save from the pause screen, which made the game a bit less annoying when I suddenly needed to save and quit. On the other hand though, you have games like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which before a patch that added a save and quit option, made headlines due to its restrictive save system. Some said it ruined the experience, while others applauded the developer's decision because it added a real sense of tension to even the most minor of actions, like let's say pickpocketing, that made gamers feel like their choices actually matter. Looking at Kingdom Come, which made saving harder, and the Yakuza remake, which made it much easier, it made me wonder why in some cases, obstructing our ability to save our progress can enrich the gaming experience. So today, I'd like to take a look at some interesting uses of save systems in games. Back in the day, saving, while pretty much common amongst PC gamers, wasn't that popular in console games. Even though games like The Legend of Zelda introduced a save system we could use whenever we wanted to, most games from that period required us to save in certain places, or more often than not, write down specific codes we later used to carry on from the point in which we completed a level. Why weren't we able to save whenever we wanted to in the 80s? Well, mostly due to technical limitations, as the early consoles didn't have a hard drive, and even when we could, it was like in the case of Zelda, thanks to a battery-powered RAM in the game cartridge. Well, after time we got such things like memory cards or even hard drives eventually, some developers still opted for save spots like in Metroid, which were tied directly to the game flow. Certain games, like for example Resident Evil, used it for their advantage. In the early games from Capcom's franchise, we could only save in several save rooms, and not only that, we needed a finite in-game item, the ink ribbon, to do so. And while it might seem tedious looking back at it now, it was anything but. If some of you have played a Resident Evil game back in the day, without a game guide and on a higher difficulty, you'll probably remember how scary it was, partially thanks to that save system. When we were able to save only a certain amount of times, we saved only when we needed to, and when the game got harder later on and our ink ribbons were running out, almost every trip to the save room had to be carefully planned out beforehand, or often even reconsidered, because indulging in our compulsive need to have our progress saved could have resulted in our character dying on their way to the save room, or, which was much worse, in a loss of valuable resources like ammo and healing items. Although absurd at first, because autosave and quick saves were gaining in popularity in the late 90s, limiting our saves to certain locations or item usage became a staple of horror games for the years to come, like with CDs in Obscure, because it strengthened the feeling of tension and influenced how we explored those nightmarish game worlds. Several horror games that pay homage to horrors of the past rely on such save systems to this day, like for example Alien Isolation, in which we can save using an emergency phone. Here, similarly to Resident Evil, such a gameplay design choice creates much tension. However, it also had a significant downside, since during the saving process the game also remembered the location of the xenomorph. It was possible that you could have saved with the stalker just on your tail, only to die shortly afterwards near the save point, and thus have a broken save, because the monster will be there every single time you reload. The recent Resident Evil 7, while bringing back save spots, could have had the same problem, but avoided it, due to the fact that our stalkers couldn't get near those safe havens. Another game, or in this case games, that limit saving to certain locations and benefit from it are the games from the Dark Souls franchise or any so-called soul-likes that take inspiration from them. In this case, we only save at bonfires or other places, like for example ladders in Bloodborne. Those save locations not only serve as satisfying milestones that allow us to look back with ease at the areas that previously seemed unbeatable, but they also seem, in a way, to evolve the idea of generating tension by safe spots like in Resident Evil. Let me explain why. Killing enemies gives us souls, blood, salts, you name it, that serve as both money and experience points. And when you can lose all of that if you die 2 times in a row, it's safe to return to safe spots and use them to level up as often as possible. That, however, respawns enemies and can often seem counterintuitive when we're a long way from home and things seem to be going well for us. At least for now. In many cases in Dark Souls 3, I was venturing deeper and deeper into the unknown with potions running out and a huge amount of souls, in the desperate need of a bonfire, and it was then when, surprisingly, even the smallest enemy filled me with dread because even the smallest mistake could have undone 30 or so minutes of progress. Getting cocky in Souls games and being quickly reminded that we're not so good after all resembles actions of a gambling addict on a temporary winning streak. We can stop and enjoy what we have earned, but we feel we can get even more, so we risk it all and in the end lose everything. And apart from overall great game design, that aspect of the Souls games and Soul-likes is achieved by limiting our save options. In Resident Evil and Souls games, save limitations made our gameplay choices matter, so can the same thing be achieved with story decisions in a different genre? After all, it's not uncommon to reload in an RPG when we do something bad or mess up in a dialogue. The answer is yes, but it requires no save options whatsoever and relying on autosave. Take a look at some series from Telltale games like the famous Walking Dead or the more recent second season of Batman, or what we can see in Quantic Dream's AAA stories like Heavy Rain and beyond. Certain decisions in those games can lead to greatly different outcomes, and since there's no option to save at will, and we can't skip dialogues easily, reloading just to try again becomes cumbersome. Those games rely on autosaves at certain story points, often just after we make a story-impacting decision. All in all, we can watch alternate playthroughs on YouTube or even consult a guide to know what are the best choices we can make, but since it's not so easy to just reload and try to do better, as some consequences will be seen long after a decision is made, usually we stick to our decisions and try to play it safe. When it's hard or time-consuming to try again, our choices start to actually matter and we feel much more invested in the story, or like in Until Dawn's case, the saves after major QuickTime events and story points get us angry that we just messed up a sequence and one of our characters has died like an idiot. Life is Strange, while also using autosaves to keep our eyes peeled, plays around with that concept a bit. In the first season, since our heroine can time travel, we can instantly go back and change our mind and pick what for us might have seemed like the best decision. But since, in many cases, there are no real good choices, and like in Telltale's case, many decisions have long-term consequences, we usually stick to our first pick and don't really lament the lack of quick save or a quick load. Next to that, since the time-traveling mechanic can make us feel safe, when developers take that ability away from us at certain points in the story, like in the final moments of episode 2 for example, we get much more invested in decision-making. There's also an option to combine save limitations with autosaves and save requiring items to enhance the overall experience, just like the aforementioned Kingdom Come Deliverance proves. Although, after fan outcry, Warhorse eventually added a save and quit option, saving in the game still isn't easy. Apart from the expensive potion that allows us to save whenever we want to, progress can be saved when we rest, or auto-saved at certain points in quests, and although it might seem annoying at first, once you get used to it, it goes hand in hand with the game's quote-unquote realism. First of all, it makes combat and injuries much more significant. When we die, or let's say break our legs a long way from home, and sometime since the last save for that matter, then well, tough luck. We probably should have been more cautious or not so eager to pick fights. Secondly, it adds a great risk and reward system when we try to abuse the laws of this world. Since pickpocketing and lockpicking can help us in many quests, we might consider them, especially since they are a good way to get rich early in the game. but the game quickly teaches us that it's wrong, getting our character incarcerated, or even having people reluctant to talk to us when our reputation goes down. Kingdom Come was probably the first game in a while in which a stealth segment almost gave me a heart attack, just like in the old Splinter Cell games, because it required a lot of luck, planning, and skill, and since it was easy to fail, it was immensely satisfying when I succeeded. Because the save system is constructed in such a way, even something as simple as getting a few groschen out of a chest can feel like winning a lottery. It goes without saying that different games require different save systems. An autosave with checkpoints in a blockbuster is useful to keep the pacing going, while in a, let's say, a stealth game, it's the worst idea possible. Being able to save only at certain locations can improve the atmosphere and add tension to traversal or navigating in a horror, but it can be outright annoying in an expansive open-world game. Taking that into account, it might seem that a quick save quick load is the best possible option out there, and I partially agree because gamers should be left to their own devices, and not all of us have the patience, skill, or the time to put in lots of hours into one sitting. On the other hand though, making saving easy in games like Telltale adventure games or action RPGs like in Dark Souls would ruin what we love those games for, and developers should not be afraid to be more demanding of us if it's supposed to be part of a well-balanced and satisfying experience. A save system like in Kingdom Come might seem controversial, but it's part of what makes the game so much fun, and developers shouldn't back down under pressure because a game doesn't have to be a wish-fulfilling experience for everyone. Some of us really like the challenge. As for the save system in general, well, as I've shown today, there's still much more developers can do with this seemingly ordinary part of gaming. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one.